For 35 years, he worked at the same airfield. People thought he was just a quiet helicopter mechanic. Until his son found hidden NATO pilot photographs in his father's old toolbox. 47 pilots. All completed their missions safely because of him. Welcome to Silent Legends. Before we unveil the story of a helicopter mechanic whose wrench became a weapon for freedom, who turned aircraft maintenance into lifelines for Western pilots operating behind the Iron Curtain, tell me in the comments from which city are you watching this video today? And if you believe some heroes hide in plain sight, subscribe to witness stories that time forgot, but history never will. Prague, Czechoslovakia, 1978. The Ruzyně airport stretched across the grey landscape like a monument to socialist efficiency. Concrete runways cut precise lines through the Czech countryside, while hangars stood in regimented rows under perpetually overcast skies. This was the height of the Cold War, when Czechoslovakia served as a crucial buffer between NATO and the Warsaw Pact, and every aircraft movement was monitored by both sides. Václav Novák had worked at Ruzyně for 15 years, since 1963, maintaining the fleet of Mi-8 and Mi-24 helicopters that served the Czechoslovak Air Force. At 42, he was considered one of the most skilled helicopter mechanics in the country, capable of diagnosing engine problems by sound alone and performing repairs that kept aircraft operational far beyond their expected service life. To his colleagues, Václav was exactly what he appeared, a dedicated technician who arrived early, stayed late, and spoke little about anything beyond torque specifications and hydraulic pressure. He lived in a modest apartment in Prague's Vinohrady district, took the same tram to work every morning, and spent his lunch breaks reading technical manuals in the hangar office. But Václav Novák was living a secret that would have cost him his life if discovered by the communist authorities. Since 1975, Václav had been providing covert technical support to NATO reconnaissance missions operating in Czechoslovak airspace. When Western aircraft developed mechanical problems during secret intelligence-gathering flights, Václav would receive coded messages through a network of sympathizers and arrange clandestine repairs that enabled the missions to continue without detection. The arrangement had begun almost by accident. In the spring of 1975, an American helicopter conducting electronic surveillance along the Czech-Austrian border had experienced engine failure and made an emergency landing in a remote forest clearing near the town of Český Krumlov. The crew managed to send a distress signal before Czech military forces could locate them, but they needed immediate technical assistance to repair their aircraft and escape. Through a network of anti-communist sympathizers connected to Radio Free Europe, word reached Václav that Western pilots needed help. The request was simple but dangerous. Could a skilled helicopter mechanic travel to the crash site and perform field repairs that would enable the aircraft to reach Austrian airspace? Václav's answer had been immediate, yes. The journey to Český Krumlov required Václav to travel 160 kilometers south of Prague without arousing suspicion. He arranged for official leave, claiming he needed to visit his elderly aunt in the region. On a foggy Saturday morning in May 1975, he loaded his personal toolbox into his Skoda 105 and drove through the Bohemian countryside. The meeting point was an abandoned quarry where the disabled helicopter had been moved under cover of darkness. When Václav arrived, he found 3 American aircrew waiting anxiously beside their aircraft, a modified UH-1 Huey equipped with sophisticated electronic monitoring equipment. The problem was immediately apparent to Václav's trained eye. A fractured fuel line had caused the engine to lose power. It was reparable, but the work required specialized tools and replacement parts that the crew didn't have. "Can you fix it?" asked the aircraft commander, a young captain whose tension was evident despite his attempts to remain calm. Václav examined the damage carefully. The repair would require a custom-fabricated fuel line connector, precise welding work, and recalibration of the fuel system. In his workshop at Ruzyně, it would be a routine job. In a forest clearing with portable tools, it was nearly impossible. But Václav had spent 15 years adapting standard procedures to field conditions. Working by flashlight as night fell, he fabricated a temporary connector using materials from his emergency kit, rerouted the fuel line to bypass the damaged section, and rigged a bypass system that would provide enough fuel flow to reach Austrian territory. The repair took 8 hours. As dawn approached, the American crew tested their aircraft and found it airworthy. Before departing, the captain handed Václav a small radio and a frequency list. "If you're willing to help again," he said, "we'll find a way to contact you." Václav pocketed the radio without hesitation. "Send the signal," he replied in broken English. "I will be ready." Over the following months, Václav's covert support operation expanded into a sophisticated network that provided technical assistance to NATO intelligence missions throughout Central Europe. The system worked through carefully coordinated communications and supply networks that enabled Václav to support aircraft operating hundreds of kilometers from Prague. The process typically began with coded radio messages transmitted on frequencies monitored by sympathetic checks working in telecommunications. These messages would contain aircraft identification, location coordinates, and technical problem descriptions. The information would then be passed through a network of anti-communist contacts until it reached Václav. Based on the problem description, Václav would assemble repair kits containing the tools and parts likely needed for field repairs. These kits were then transported to predetermined locations near the aircraft by network members who posed as farmers, hunters, or travelers with legitimate reasons to be in remote areas. Václav would travel to the repair site using various cover stories, visiting relatives, hunting trips, equipment deliveries to collective farms. Once there, he would perform whatever repairs were possible with field equipment and coordinate with the aircrew to ensure safe departure. The most challenging aspect wasn't the technical work. Václav's skills were more than adequate for field repairs. The real difficulty was timing and security. NATO missions operated on tight schedules with narrow windows for safe entry and exit from Czech airspace. Any delay increased the risk of detection by Czech air defense systems or Soviet monitoring stations. But Václav developed innovative solutions that minimized repair time while maintaining aircraft safety. He created modular repair kits that could address the most common helicopter problems. He established supply caches at strategic locations throughout the country. Most importantly, he trained other mechanics in his network to perform basic repairs, expanding the coverage area and reducing dependence on his personal involvement. The operation's most dangerous moment came in November 1982, when a NATO reconnaissance helicopter suffered catastrophic engine failure deep inside Czechoslovak territory. The aircraft, carrying sophisticated electronic equipment for monitoring Warsaw Pact communications, had been forced to land in a forest near the town of Tabor, only 90 kilometers south of Prague. The location was particularly hazardous because it was close to a major Czech Air Force base and within the patrol area of regular military security sweeps. More critically, the aircraft's sophisticated equipment made it a high-value intelligence target that both sides would fight to control. Václav received the emergency signal at 3 a.m. The message was brief but urgent: bird down. Grid 347. Engine dead. Package critical. Need immediate assistance. The package referred to the classified electronic equipment that could not be allowed to fall into Warsaw Pact hands. If Václav couldn't repair the aircraft quickly, the crew would be forced to destroy their helicopter and attempt to escape on foot, a prospect that offered little chance of success. Václav loaded his emergency repair kit and drove through the pre-dawn darkness toward Tabor. The journey required him to pass through 2 military checkpoints, where he explained that he was responding to an urgent repair call at a collective farm. His credentials as a certified aircraft mechanic and his calm demeanor convinced the guards to let him pass. At the crash site, Václav found a situation worse than he had expected. The helicopter's engine hadn't just failed, it had suffered a cascading series of failures that had damaged multiple systems. The fuel pump was destroyed, the hydraulic system was compromised, and electrical components had been damaged by overheating. Working by flashlight in freezing temperatures, Václav began the most complex field repair of his career. He cannibalized parts from the helicopter's non-essential systems to rebuild the fuel delivery system. He jury-rigged hydraulic bypasses using materials from his emergency kit. He rewired electrical connections to restore power to critical flight systems. The work took 12 hours. As evening approached, Czech military patrols were expanding their search patterns and aircraft from the nearby air base were conducting reconnaissance flights. Time was running out. At 6 p.m., with darkness providing cover, the repaired helicopter attempted to start its engine. The first attempt failed. The second attempt produced power but unstable performance. On the third attempt, the engine caught and held steady power. The NATO crew performed a rapid systems check, confirmed minimal flight capability, and departed immediately for the Austrian border. Václav watched the aircraft disappear into the night, knowing that he had just enabled one of the most significant intelligence rescues of the Cold War. By 1985, Václav's network had provided technical support for 47 NATO intelligence missions operating in Czechoslovak airspace. These missions gathered critical information about Warsaw Pact military capabilities, communication systems, and strategic planning that helped maintain the balance of power during the Cold War's final phase. But perhaps more importantly, Václav's work had saved the lives of dozens of Western aircrew who would have been captured or killed if their aircraft had remained disabled in communist territory. Each successful repair operation represented not just an intelligence victory, but human lives preserved. The network operated with remarkable security throughout the decade. Despite intensive surveillance by the Czechoslovak secret police and Soviet intelligence services, no network member was ever arrested or identified. The operation remained completely hidden until the fall of communism in 1989. When the Velvet Revolution finally liberated Czechoslovakia from communist rule, Václav quietly returned to ordinary aircraft maintenance work. He never spoke publicly about his wartime activities, never sought recognition or compensation, and never contacted any of the pilots he had helped save. Václav died in 2001, taking his secrets with him. For 17 years, his family believed they knew everything about the gentleman who had spent his life keeping helicopters in the air. That changed in 2018, when Václav's son Tomáš was cleaning out his father's workshop in preparation for selling the family house. Hidden in a false bottom of Václav's old toolbox, Tomáš discovered a collection of photographs, letters, and documents that revealed the extraordinary scope of his father's Cold War activities. The photographs showed NATO aircrew posing with their repaired helicopters, often with Václav visible in the background, tools in hand. The letters were thank you notes from pilots whose lives had been saved by his mechanical expertise. The documents included mission reports, repair logs, and communications that documented every operation Václav had supported. Most moving of all was a letter from a retired American pilot, written in 1995 but never sent, thanking the Czech angel who kept us flying and brought us home safely. Today, a small memorial in Prague honors Václav Novák and other Czechs who risked their lives to support Western intelligence operations during the Cold War. The memorial features a simple plaque, "For those who served freedom in silence, turning ordinary tools into instruments of liberation, proving that heroism requires no uniform, only courage." In 2019, the Czech government posthumously awarded Václav the Medal for Heroism. Representatives from NATO countries attended the ceremony, including several of the pilots whose lives he had saved. They spoke of a man who had never asked for anything except the chance to help others reach safety. Have you ever met someone whose daily work quietly supported a greater cause? Someone who used their ordinary skills to do extraordinary things when history demanded it? Someone who proved that heroism can hide in the most unexpected places? Share their stories in the comments. Because legends like Václav Novák remind us that heroes don't always wear uniforms or receive medals, sometimes they carry toolboxes and work in anonymity, saving lives one repair at a time. Thank you for watching Silent Legends. If this story moved you, subscribe and help us honor those who were never meant to be forgotten. Because sometimes the greatest courage is expressed through the smallest acts, performed consistently, by people who never expected to be remembered as heroes.